On this episode of Floss Weekly, I'm joined by Dan Lynch to talk to Crystal Hammer about Stunt Rally, the game that lets you drive a rally car around test tracks or regular tracks, design your own tracks, who cares? It's a lot of fun, and it's coming up right now on Floss Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly, episode 202, recorded on February 22nd, 2012, Stunt Rally. This episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by Ford, featuring the EcoBoost engine with turbocharger and direct injection. Look for the EcoBoost on the 2012 Explorer and Edge and the 2013 Escape, and at Ford.com/technology. Welcome once again to Floss Weekly, the show where we talk about free Libre open source software. That's what Floss stands for. And so we try to do that every week. And I'm joined this week by Dan Lynch. Dan, how's it going?
Great. Good to be here. Yeah, all the way from not so sunny Merseyside in the UK.
So there you go. So just to rub it in a little bit, here in the Bay Area, it's supposed to be about 72 and sunny today. So this is our kind of spring. There's always this like 1 week in spring where it gets really, really nice and people go to the beach and all that, and then it kind of gets cold again before it gets nice again. So I think this is that week for us. So again, you have to try to plan that out with the weather gods and make it out here sometime for that little break in spring. But it's good to have you back on the show, and we are here to talk about just lost the name of it, Stunt Rally. Almost forgot and all the excitement. So Stunt Rally is a game. We get to talk about a game for once, where it's actually a rally / drifting / test track kind of game where you can actually put together a track or use one of the pre-made ones, and you get to play in a little car. And it's very similar to a lot of other racing games if you're a racing game fan. And you get to drive various cars around the track. It's got lots of options and stuff. I was playing with it yesterday, actually, and had a little trouble because I couldn't get it to install on Ubuntu 11.10, which I'm running on my laptop. So I want to ask about that. But also, I was able to get it installed on my desktop, which has a little bit nicer video card. So I played it for, I don't know, about an hour. My kids came in. They were watching, trying to play it too with the controller and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to that. Dan, did you get a chance to try out Stunt Rally by any chance?
Unfortunately, I haven't so far. So you're going to have to lead off with the actual experience of trying it. But I think I'll be trying it after the show because it looks really, really interesting.
Yeah. Are you in general a fan of driving games, I guess, in general?
Yeah, although I think, I don't know, maybe I have a short attention span because I'm not really into the kind of, Gran Turismo and things like that, which are very popular on, PlayStation and so on. They're a little bit too technical for me. I tend to like games where you can kind of crash the car and do stupid things, and you don't have to worry so much about shaving seconds off your lap time so much as jumping over things and crashing into people and stuff. I don't know. Maybe that says more about me than it does about anything else.
Yeah, I think it does. But anyway, well, we're going to bring on our guest in just a minute. But before we get there, we do have a nice little ad today from Ford. So this episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by Ford, featuring EcoBoost. EcoBoost is the engine technology from Ford that delivers the power of a larger engine in a smaller one. So it's good for fuel economy. EcoBoost engine technology has helped make the 7-passenger Ford Explorer best-in-class highway fuel economy rating. And here's how Ford did it. Ford redesigned the conventional engine to meet fuel economy standards. They created EcoBoost engine technology by reducing the number of cylinders to improve efficiency and compensating for the loss in horsepower and torque through a combination of technologies, including direct injection and turbocharging. So here's how that works. EcoBoost combines those two technologies. The direct injection produces a cooler, denser charge that generates more power per drop of fuel. Makes sense? While the two small engine-cooled turbochargers spool up more quickly than a single large turbo. So the engine from the energy from the engine's exhaust, which would otherwise be wasted, rotates the turbine wheels. Each turbine is coupled with a compressor that pressurizes incoming air, significantly increasing output per liter. So you experience instantaneously low-end torque responsiveness with virtually no turbo lag. Now you know how it works. So look for the 2.0-liter EcoBoost engine on the 2012 Explorer and Edge, and the 2013 Escape, which is coming out this spring, will offer a 1.6-liter engine and a 2.0-liter engine EcoBoost option. So you can find out more about that and other exciting technologies Ford is bringing to its vehicles at Ford.com/technology. So with that, let's go over and see if our guest is ready to talk about Stunt Rally. All right, so let's bring on our guest, Crystal Hammer. Crystal, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, so I should explain, we're using Crystal Hammer. Where are you calling us from? And then we'll talk about your name real quick.
I'm from Poland, Krakow.
So Krakow, Poland, and you have a Polish name. So we've decided just to go with Crystal Hammer, and that's okay with you, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, so that's easier on us, I know. I apologize for that, but I know it's easier on us just to go. It sounds like you have used that as a pseudonym for quite a while, though, right?
Yes, I'm known by this name in internet and as a developer too.
Right. So people know you online like that. Well, let's talk about Stunt Rally. Can you give us a high level of description of what Stunt Rally is?
Well, the name already tells two important things. It's first off, it's a rally, so it's not a racing game. It's about loose surface and gravel and sliding all the time, basically. And the second part tells stunts, so it's possible to have tracks with jumps, loops, and pipes. It's not that every track has those, but there are 70 tracks, so it's possible to have tracks that are only rally, so flat and only on terrain, and also some weird tracks that are very twisted, or some all pipe tracks too.
Right. So we should, by your description, we should tell everybody that if they're used to a road racing game, for example, like Need for Speed or some of the other games, track games, hard track games, this is actually more traditional rally. So you're actually, you're going to be sliding around a lot more, for example, in the cars, and most of the tracks are outside, outside, dirt, except for like the jumps and things like that, right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. So how did you get started on this? I mean, this seems like, are there other racing games like this out there? Or is this something that that you saw a need for, you wanted to do, and so you decided to work on it?
Yes, I don't know. I didn't know that I will come to this, and it's going to be popular and all. I just started with compiling VDrift. I was playing a lot of VDrift too. It's a free game that has those usual circle tracks from known tracks on the world, and it's basically tarmac racing, so driving, and it has nothing to do with rally at the moment. Then I was experimenting with tire parameters there, and I get them to behave like gravel. And from that point, I decided to implement the renderer using OGRE. And this is basically how it started. From that point, it was March 2010. From that point, I started implementing various things like terrain and added road construction. I did implement the whole geometry with road by myself. It wasn't available. But for example, vegetation, we used a known plugin for that, a library that does it. And Well,
And the rendering is all done. That's what Ogre's for, right?
yes.
And is that kind of explain the history of Ogre? I mean, has it been around for a while, or where else is it used?
Yes, it's a free and I think very good rendering engine. I know it's since a while, so I think I don't know exactly, but it's been a while for a few years.
Yeah, would it be considered an alternative to something like OpenGL?
Ogre actually uses both OpenGL and DirectX. The original VDrift uses only OpenGL, and from my point of view, if you play on Windows, I have few FPS better, so the performance is a bit better using DirectX with Ogre. So, but on Linux, I'm sure that only OpenGL is available.
So that's an important distinction. Then on Windows, you use DirectX, and
yes.
on Linux, you use OpenGL.
Yes, that's basically it's this.
So Ogre basically sits on top of those and does the actual rendering of all of the topography and all that.
Yes, Ogre is an engine, and you can choose which rendering system you want to use.
Uh-huh.
So I can also switch to OpenGL and test if it's going to look the same or behave the same.
Right. How much did you actually take from VDrift? I mean, is this basically, most of VDrift and then just tweaked a little bit, or explain the contribution that you're using from VDrift?
Well, our game Stunt Rally is using only simulation part of VDrift. It took me a while. It's like the half of the source code from VDrift, and all the stuff that is new is made by us. Well, I was developing this alone for a year. Then two developers joined. They actually are on Linux. I'm on Windows. And I also created the whole editor by myself.
Mm-hmm. Wow! So you actually the track editor you did by yourself. That's amazing because there's a lot of. I did play this yesterday on my desktop because I run. I'm on Ubuntu 10.10. I should mention that I wasn't able to get it working on my laptop because I'm on 11.10 on my laptop. But I'm on Ubuntu 10.10 at home. On my desktop, and I have a nice graphics card there because I play a lot of games at home. So I was able to test this out there. And interestingly enough, I mean, I find the track editor part of it is actually one of the more appealing parts of this game. The fact that you can actually go in, set up, either emulate something that you've seen in real life, for example, or maybe in a different game that you've used, you could actually go in and set something up similarly, or just go crazy. I think there's a level that is basically all pipe, right?
Yes. Well, the track editor is a big part of this game, and I feel like I'm the only one using it, but. You can actually do everything that's possible on track with this editor. It's been since a year like this. All the tracks, there are currently 73 tracks were made by this editor. It's not an easy application. You need to learn to make tracks, and also it's not easy to make an interesting track. Yeah, but we have a video tutorial about it. But it's 1 year old. Well, but it covers all the topics that are needed to start, and the rest can be read directly in editor. There is a page with all comments for and key shortcuts, mouse actions, all that stuff. There are a few approaches to make tracks. You can basically start with editing an existing tracks and see what you can edit. And if you want to create a track from beginning, that's more difficult. But
Yeah. Yeah. But you can, I mean, that there is settings in there. I noticed there's some, well, maybe I should ask you because I didn't try it. So I know there's some winter tracks and some like forest mountain tracks and desert tracks. I mean, do those elements actually affect the way that the car handles?
That's a topic that isn't, well, we have only 2 parameters for surfaces. Well, much more, but the traction for tires is only described by one parameter. It's friction. So of course it's different on jungle road, and it's different in winter. You will slide much more in winter. There are actually about 2 tracks that are on ice, so it's kind of difficult and you need to get used to it. But there are a few more, like bump amplitude and everything.
And there's also in the water too. I mean, I noticed when you drive through the water, you slow down significantly.
Yes, that's a kind of new feature that I added recently. Those water areas and mud areas you can drive through. It's of course not realistic, because if you drive a car into a water, you will probably not get it out of there. Our water is safe water. You can drive through it, and mud also. You won't get stuck in mud, and it's fun. It's more playable.
So Crystal, you mentioned that at the moment you're kind of like the only person using the level editor, or so it seems. So do you think that's because you mentioned there's a bit of learning and stuff, and you have to do a bit of learning to do that? Do you think that's the reason, or do you think we'll see more people contributing tracks and things back?
Well, I don't know exactly, because one of our developers made 2 tracks, so I'm not the only one. But the 75 tracks were made by me. A few are not there anymore. But I think the editor is kind of a specific application. You can't just turn it on and edit tracks right away. You need to watch the tutorial. I really recommend it, and then look at we have a wiki page about the track editor. It lists the most important shortcuts and navigation options and such kind of things. When you feel you're good at navigating with camera, and then you can start with editing road, deforming terrain and such things. I think it's not easy to I don't know, start with it and get a good feeling in a reasonable time. I like the editor. I know everything about it. It's just easy for me to make any tracks. Still, it's like 2 hours or more to make a nice track. There were even some tracks that took me like 4 to 6 hours. That's because the smoothing tool wasn't that good. I need to implement some things, but
right. Sorry. I was just going to say, if I did say, Aaron and I are both playing this game, and I create a track, is there some way I could export it and send it to him, maybe as a file or something that he could play on his version?
Yes, this is totally possible, and the good thing about this is also tracks aren't that big in size. Well, a track is about approximately let's say 2 megabytes, and so the whole game is about 200 megabytes, and it contains already 70 tracks. So you can create a track and pack it in an archive and send it to anyone. It's possible that the person extracts it, and you can play it.
So are people uploading these to like websites and things? Have we seen anyone doing that yet? Because it seems it might be a really cool way to build a little community of people, sharing tracks and so on.
Yes, I wrote something about tracks that we need. We are looking for any people, but no one really contacted me with, so there is no way. We can organize a topic in our issues about new tracks, so people could contact me, and well, if there are good tracks, we can release them in new release of the game, include them.
Excellent. So, I mean, if anyone, well, that's a good point. If anyone watching this is interested in making tracks, then they should head over to the site and check out the forum and, as you say, and get in touch with you, because that could be a really good community thing. So, speaking of community and so on, do you have any idea of kind of how many people are playing this game? You mentioned it's got quite popular. So, do you see a lot of downloads right now?
Well, to be honest, I don't have a good understanding of how many users we have. I only saw, I can guess that it's about 4,000 people downloading this game every month, well, after a release. But this is only guessing. I'm sure that there are 1,000 on SourceForge, but we don't have actually a forum where people could share some thoughts or discuss many things. We can use the Google issues, but it's mainly for us to.
Right. Okay. And that was something that I noticed, is that you're using a lot of different different resources. You're using like GitHub and SourceForge and Google Code and all these different things. Does that not make it difficult, not having everything based in one place? What's the thinking behind that?
Well, the point is, we, for example, use Picasso Web to host a gallery. It's an application that's really good at having pictures and folders with them. Next thing, we'll use SourceForge for hosting the bigger downloads since 200 megabytes and up. I recommend visiting the homepage. It has on its first page, there are links for everything. So the homepage has everything. So if you need anything, you can just start there and visit videos and such stuff. We originally were having everything there, but we moved with repositories to GitHub since it's just better for us to develop there.
Excellent. And we actually got some questions from the IRC channel as the show's going on. At the moment, you can't do multiplayer or any kind of network play. And I think it's Starburst in the IRC was asking, do you have any plans to look at that in future, allow people to play against each other?
Well, actually, we have multiplayer. We just didn't release it yet, but in the GitHub repository, there is a version that has. We actually did play, 4 times. It's not finished yet, but you can actually connect to people and have a game and play against. Even car collisions going quite well between the cars.
One thing I do like about it, I mean, even though, assuming the multiplayer comes out and is actually supported, the one thing I do like is the fact that you can race against yourself. So it looks like you're recording at the same time you're playing, you're recording the user's movements and so forth, because then when you go back and play it again, a different color car appears, and at first I was like, what the heck, I didn't choose to, I'm supposed to be playing by myself, and then I realized that car was following the course that I had done previously, and so you can kind of race against yourself, which actually makes it kind of fun.
Yes, that's the Ghost Drive. It's the drive from your best time. You can also make replays. So if you drive some, funny stuff or something that you want to save, you can save it on your hard drive and watch it later. I usually do it and then play it, and we have a video made of those. It's much faster than drive live. But if you drive and you have the best lap, you can actually see the Ghost Drive. It's a different car, and you can actually compete with it. There's also this opponents list, so you can see track percentage, how much of the track you drove, and you also can see the ghost triangle on minimap, so we can see where is it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool feature. Did that come over from VDrift, or is that something you implemented yourself?
The minimap?
The ghost. The ghost.
The ghost was implemented by me.
Oh, that's a cool feature. I when I first saw it, I'm like, okay, this makes it immensely more interesting now because now you're actually competing against yourself, which is a lot of fun. I used to when I play, for example, I'm trying to think of one of the, like Wii. What is it? Mario Kart Wii, for example, has that as one of the modes you can play, and it's always kind of fun to play against yourself because you get better and better and better as time goes on. So that's kind of cool. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Dan. I just thought I'd mention that feature. So.
No, that's really good. I haven't actually managed to play the game yet, so it's a good job you have, so you can tell us all about these things. So I was curious a bit about the kind of we've talked about getting it to work on Ubuntu, and obviously it works on Windows. We talked about DirectX and so on. So will it work on a Mac, and what's the kind of platform compatibility like for different things?
Well, the game runs on Linux. We have two developers who did port it to Linux. It was a year back. We didn't have yet a build for Mac. It's in the issues. No one did answer. Well, some guy did try, but he didn't reply afterwards.
It must have been a bad experience.
Yeah.
Oh, here, I'll try this. Then you don't hear from him again. I noticed also there was like I said, I was able to try this on my desktop because I'm running Ubuntu 10.10, but there wasn't an 11.10 build that I could find anywhere. Is that something that, are you aware of somebody trying to put that together to make it so you can run it easily? I guess you could compile it yourself on 11.10, Ubuntu 11.10 if you wanted to. But is there a build, is there a build taking place for 11.10 to make it easy to install?
Well, since the version 1.4, we have a Linux binary. I'm not really familiar with it, but it's supposed to be working on every Linux distribution. So you just copy it and unpack it, and you should be able to start the game.
Oh, well, maybe instead of mucking around in Windows, I'll reboot into Ubuntu and try that while we're talking here. It's always fun to do live demos.
Yeah, that was something I was actually curious about. Is I had a quick look through. I'm using Ubuntu 11.10 on this machine that I'm talking to you on at the moment, and I couldn't find. I went to search for it in the software center to find it, and I couldn't find Stunt Rally in there. Has it been in previous kind of software centers, and is that something you'd like to get it in there again, or maybe get some help doing that?
I think it's not there, and it wasn't there. You just need to follow our SourceForge page, and the downloads for the version 1.4 has 4 files. One is the Windows installer, and there are 2 Linux binaries for Linux.
They've got instructions there too, so that you can, if I recall, you can actually add it to your repositories fairly easy on the command line. And I think you can add it to the software center as well, so the software center will see it. There's a way to do that via the command line as well. I noticed on one of the forum posts, I think.
Oh, that is cool. I mean, you're on Make It cross-platform, or was that something that they kind of came along and said, "Hey, can we put this on Linux as well?"
Well, the first issue on Google Hot was the port about to Linux, and I just answered that I didn't have any experience with Linux. I would really be glad if someone.
And are the versions always exactly the same then? So, I mean, as I say, you're working on a Windows version, and these other guys are working on the Linux version. So when you do new features, do they have to then import those into the Linux version as well, or is it all seamless?
Yes, well, those guys are in the team. They are developers, and they actually add new features to one of them, cool effects and stuff, and installer for Windows, and they build those binaries.
Why did you decide to make it open source? Is that was that a conscious decision at the start, or is it more to do with the fact that a lot of the components it's built?
I started with VDrift. It's GPL, and I planned all the time to have it open source. It was the first release was in April.
Excellent. So is Stunt Rally itself under the GPL as well?
Yes, it's the same license as VDrift, as GPL requires.
Oh, excellent. So, I mean, how many people are involved then? You mentioned you got a couple of guys working on the Linux version. It sounds like you're doing kind of the lion's share of the work, the majority of the work. So how many people contribute to the project right now?
Well, right now we are a team of 4 developers. I'm mainly extending the gameplay, so I added recently championships also, and the water mud stuff. We have a very active developer also on the Linux. He basically adds much to the look of the game. So recently new materials and effects, screen effects. We have another guy that did I think he started with translation to other languages, but he also did the multiplayer. And the fourth guy, he started to implement DirectX 11 renderer. That's not important right now, I think. It's going to be a feature for the future.
Cool. Okay, so that's something to look forward to in the future. So, I mean, you're doing a lot of development on this yourself. So, what's been the most kind of challenging thing about doing this project for you?
Well, I think the most challenging thing was making the road, because there wasn't a library which would have the road or any kind of such things. It can be also used for rivers, for example. But it took me a while, and it's really a nice thing because you can edit the points of the road in real time. So each point has several parameters, like it can be in air, it can be a part of a pipe. Also, the transitions between pipes and bridged road weren't that easy, let's say. And well, I think that's the most complicated thing.
What about let me just jump in and then I'll give it back to you, Dan. What about the camera aspect of it? Because I know there's different settings you can do for the view, for what kind of view you want. But I found that the default view, like when I would go into a pipe, for example, or a real steep bend, sometimes the camera would go behind the structure, so I wouldn't actually see where I was.
Yes, well, we have a camera that I thought it would be nice, and it worked for some time, but some tracks are really difficult, like those with pipes or those with high slopes, like this new one with high peaks. Camera is really not that good anymore. You need to switch the camera to have, for example, car-mounted camera, so to see where you're going, because the one that is behind the car would either go lose itself or just be covered with pipes and such things.
So I'm curious about the actual kind of a little bit about the development process and so on. So what language are you mainly developing? Is it C++ or something like that?
Yes, it's mainly C++. It's only C++.
Right. Okay. And you're using a lot of components like Ogre, as you said. Presumably VDrift would have been in C++ as well, and that makes sense. So you could have taken the code over. So what kind of thing you say you're using Ogre? Does Ogre deal with all of we talked a bit about rendering before. Will that deal with whether to make it OpenGL or DirectX or whatever based on the platform and give you a bit of a kind of an abstraction? So you just write your code and then let it deal with how it's going to run?
Yeah, well, Ogre is a great thing because you don't have to care about, for example, scene and organizing meshes and such things. It's a great thing to start because you just write your code at a higher abstraction. You can have all resources loaded, and you don't need to implement the code for it. So really.
So what kind of development environment do you use then? Are you how are you producing the code? Do you use an IDE, or are you like a text editor or something like that?
Well, I'm using Visual Studio. I just got used to it, but I don't know exactly what other developers use.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because I've used Visual Studio back in my dark .NET developer days many years ago, but I don't know many people using it for C++. It was always the Microsoft kind of languages of Visual Basic and C# and things like that. But I know there is Visual C++ and things. I was curious about some of the other things that you mentioned on your little biog that you sent us, including the fact that you've got a modified keyboard that you use, which has 17 extra keys. So what do these 17 extra keys do?
Yes, that was my project some time ago when I was into electronics and that stuff. Mostly I use them for, some are for audio player, and some are for just turning on some applications like Firefox and stuff. You can actually configure them for anything. They can emulate other keys or start a command.
Right. So you mentioned you're into electronics and stuff. Did you actually solder the things together and add the extra bits onto like an existing keyboard?
Yes, that was a project that took me like 2 weeks. If I was with Stunt Rally at the moment, I probably wouldn't have time for that. But I did soldier it. There was a time in my life that I did a lot of electronic stuff.
Oh, that's cool. So there's no plans to mass produce them and sell them or anything. These extra keyboards.
No, it was hard enough to do it. The one or two. I actually have two of them.
Right. So what's in the kind of the future plans for Stunt Rally? I mean, you've got any big things coming up on the roadmap that you want to tell us about?
Well, the first plan. The next release is going to definitely have championships and tutorials, so you can actually play a championships consisting from existing tracks. It's going to have multiplayer. I think we're going to finish it. Just needs the winner determination and luck counting. After that, I'm thinking of adding dynamic objects to tracks like barrels, crates, and stuff that's going to move when you hit it.
So what about? Are you looking also for more active developers? I mean, is this and where can people go to learn? Is there on the website? I don't remember seeing a tutorial on coding or anything, but I mean, is there someplace people can go to if they want to contribute something?
Well, of course, we are looking for talented developers that could contribute to the project. There is a wiki page compiling. You can find other instructions and libraries needed to compile the game by yourself. It's required if you want to join. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for me 2 years ago to compile VDrift, and I fear that Stunt Rally isn't an easy project to compile, but I think already a few people done it.
Right, good. So what else should we know? I mean, we've talked a lot about this. I'm certainly glad that it's open source. There are not enough good options, although there's more and more all the time, good gaming options on Linux. But I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, what else do we need to know in terms of where this is going and any other cool open source games? You say you're mostly on Windows though, so I guess you wouldn't know much about the Linux games, as it were.
No, I actually, first off, I don't play games that much. I was always the guy who wanted to create games, not to play them. But before I compiled VDrift, I already checked torques and other possibilities. I decided VDrift was the best for me and most complicated with simulation. The things that you want to know about Stunt Rally, you can always find everything on the homepage. We have few wiki pages that describe what you want to know. There's a page, for example, with fashion history if you want to know what changed. There's this editor tutorial too. And on the wiki page, fashion history, we also put what's new, what will be new in the next release. I guess there are links for everything on that page.
Okay, great. Well, I would definitely suggest everyone go check out the homepage. The wiki was very helpful. Instructions for getting it set up under Ubuntu, and I think there's even build for Arch Linux on the homepage as well. So if you're running Arch, you could use that to play it as well. Any last questions, Dan, that you want to throw out before we wrap it up?
Yeah. I noticed when I was reading through Crystal's bio there that you don't actually have a driving license, do you? So you don't drive in real life. So do people often ask you about that? Why you make a driving game but you don't actually drive in the real world?
Yes, I did drive 30 hours in a real car. I just didn't have the time to finish it. But I play a lot. I did play many driving games at the time I wasn't developing Stunt Rally.
Right, okay. Because I just have this curious kind of image of you learning to do your driving test through all those pipes and things and all the rest of it. That would be quite a challenge, wouldn't it?
Yeah, parallel parking's one thing, but driving through a pipe is a little bit trickier.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's about everything I wanted to ask. So, yeah, thanks very much for talking to us.
Yes, thank you. It was good to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We don't often get very many games that we can review on FLOSS Weekly. So, like I said, I know there's a lot out there, but typically we end up veering towards development environments or programming languages or things like that. So it's always good to kind of broaden our scope a little bit and talk about what is a really, really fun game to play and easy to play. It detects, there's lots of settings, you full screen, different resolutions. It handles all of that. It detects gaming pads and things. I was able to plug in one of my old gaming game pads and via USB and play with that to make it a little bit easier. Good control setups, things like that. Things that you would expect to find in a mature type of a racing game type piece of software. So definitely I would recommend people going and trying it out. And I think you'll be very happy. I think you'll really enjoy the experience. There's a few things on there. It's like I said, it's not necessarily a need for speed, but I think in terms of dynamics, if you like drifting, if you like rally style games, you should definitely go check this one out because it's a really good game. So Crystal Hammer, the man with the awesome pseudonym, we appreciate you coming on today and keep up the good work on this game. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Bye.
All right, so that's Crystal Hammer, developer of Stunt Rally. So, Dan, what'd you think?
I think it's really interesting. I'm actually curious to know, did your reboot into Ubuntu work for you? You were going to try and get it working under Ubuntu as well. Yeah,
I'm not picking up the video. I for all this time, I was trying to run it in Windows because, like I said, I couldn't get it working under Ubuntu. Now I'm back in Ubuntu where I know things work, and I can't get the video to work in Ubuntu either. So there's something wrong here in the studio as far as the connection goes because I can't detect the other display. So I'm not going to be able to get it running live, unfortunately. But it's good to know that there's a binary too. I'm definitely going to try the binary out right now and see if I can get it to work under 11.10 because that's it's also available. We should have mentioned this, or we can mention it now, I guess. But it's also available in playdeb.net. I don't know if you've ever used Playdeb, Dan?
No, I haven't, no.
So playdeb.net, I believe is the URL, allows you to it's like a quick way to get games up and running on Debian-based systems. So it actually works pretty well. Basically, all you do is you go to playdeb.net on your browser, and you can select a number of games. It's in beta right now, but this game is in there, obviously, and there's a bunch more games that people are working on. Just it gives you a really easy way to and I don't know a lot about it, but when I clicked on install from there, what it did was it basically launched the graphical depackage installer and tried to, unfortunately it failed, but it tried to install the packages. And I'm guessing it failed because it couldn't find a repository and packages that were already pre-built for 11.10. But, so that's another way to go. Or if you're interested in other Linux games, certainly playdeb.net's a place to go look and see if that works for you, as well as the binaries and manual building methods. There's a lot of ways to get this game running.
I'm actually, just as you were saying that, I'm just getting it up now. That's a really good tip. So playdeb.net, it's detected that I'm on Ubuntu 11.10, and it's given me a list of games that are ready to go. So I'll definitely have a look through that as well. Right. I think a really good thing about Stunt Rally is the licensing of it, because you mentioned that it seems as though sometimes one of the big complaints I hear about Linux and gaming and stuff is the lack of certain commercial games and stuff. And we've seen like successful games recently, like Minecraft's been massively successful. Yep. It's a Java-based game, so it's available everywhere. But crucially, I mean, as much as I love the Minecraft guys and what they do, it's not an open source game. So, it's great that this is a fully GPL licensed game, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that's nice, not just from the open source aspect, but from the availability aspect, I've noticed a lot of the games, like there was a Humble bundle of games that was released recently, including World of Goo and a bunch of other games, and it was available on Windows, Linux, I think Mac, maybe not Mac, but at least Windows, Linux, and Android, which was really interesting. So a lot of the games you could play directly in Linux, and I believe Mac as well. So it was kind of like completely cross-platform availability, which was really nice. So I'm glad to see game developers, at least. I mean, if you're using OpenGL or you have OpenGL as an option, there's really, I don't think anyway, a lot of things that you have to you'd have to change to go from Windows to Linux. So for the extra development effort, I think it's well worth it.
And games really kind of get people's attention, I've noticed as well. I know it's one of those things that I suppose we all do it, but you can tell people for hours about how fantastic the file system is on this new operating system or something, but they don't care. And if you say to them, oh, there's a game here, and you show them some flashy graphics, immediately then they want to know more. So often, I think it's a really good way of getting people interested in open source and possibly alternative operating systems as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So good. Great. Well, I think that we've covered this one. It's fun to talk about just because it's kind of an exciting topic, and we both play games, so it's kind of fun to. It was fun for me anyway yesterday to test this one out. So I think it's really great. I think everyone should go try it out. So what's coming up for you, Dan? Where should people look for you and find you on the web and all that great stuff?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm actually wearing my Linux Outlaws t-shirt today. It's out of the wash. It's not always ready for FLOSS Weekly. Sometimes it's in the wash, but you'll be glad to know. It's we're going to be doing Linux Outlaws not long after we finish here. I'm going to be getting ready to do that straight after this. But it's a weekly podcast about open source software, not just Linux, although that kind of is the focus with it being in the title. We talk about all kinds of things, mobile stuff, Android, lots of other stuff. So if you want to find out more, you can go to sixgun.org/Linux Outlaws, and it's Monday nights in the UK usually, which is, I know, probably Monday morning for people in California, which is maybe not ideal, but in Europe it's Monday nights 7:00, and then we're doing a slightly rearranged show tonight. But apart from that, there's all kinds of other stuff like my blog and music stuff, and Rat Hole Radio, which is a music podcast. But you can find out about all of that just by going to danlynch.org and find links to Twitter and Google Plus and all those kind of things. So come and say hello.
Great. And as always, you can find me at thesourceshow.org. And of course, here on the TWiT network, FLOSS Weekly, and occasionally All About Android. Sometimes I sit in on that show as well. So definitely check out that. You can also just go to aaronnewcomb.com to check kind of everything that's going on in my world. And if you're on Google Plus, be sure to add me to your circles. That's the best way to get in contact with me and find out what's going on both with this show and just in general, funny things on the web. If you want to see what I'm thinking about, talking about, definitely put me in your circles on Google+, and put the Floss Weekly page in Google+ page in your circles as well. That's where we try to announce all the upcoming episodes. There's other ways, Twitter and Posterous or whatever, however you like to get your information. There's other ways to follow Floss Weekly as well. But again, if you're on Google+, definitely add the Floss Weekly page to your circles. So I think that'll just about wrap it up. So for now, and thanks for Dan for co-hosting once again. Really appreciate that.
No problem. Great to be here.
Yeah, we haven't been on a show in a while, so it's been good to co-host with you.
Yeah, definitely. I was saying before we started, I think it's been, 6 months, something like that. So it's good to see that we managed to get back on the same show after a while. Right. Yeah, definitely. It's been too long. So anyway, that'll wrap it up for us on this edition of Floss Weekly. Be sure to tune in next week and every week for your weekly dose of Floss Weekly, if that's not redundant enough. See you next time.